thing. I try to put it in perspective to people now. We follow, economic activity and how the macro world is kind of guiding their investments and their net worth. But I try to point it out to people. It's like there was a period in the 90s where Canada had over 10% for almost unemployment for like 5 years, but there was no talk of printing $1 trillion to get us out of it. Like that was not the direction that that we had then, right? So
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy, and I never thought I would be thinking about money, like what actually money is, and that's been a recent thing over the last maybe 6 years. Um, I think we still take it for granted. I think if I'm like most people, the only thing I'm concerned about really up until about 6 years ago was how was the Canadian dollar doing relative to the US dollar.
yeah,
I never thought debasement. I thought inflation at 2%. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. And you listen to what you're fed and just take it as is, like as fact. And then when you start to you get exposed to actually what's going on, you start to wake up and you realize, and these might be harsh words, but we're living in a Ponzi scheme.
yeah,
And it's absolutely brutal. And we're not going to be able to outrun this Ponzi scheme. So we have to look at it differently.
yeah. And so, Ken, I promised some of our viewers, some of our clients, that I would ask you the hard hitting questions here, Ken. So
Bring
brace
it on.
yourself, strap in. But here's the real question, Ken. We all have to know. It's like, are you Satoshi Nakamoto?
Well, I can't confirm or deny that, but no, I'm not. I wish I was. Actually, you know what? I don't wish I was, because if I was, I'd be stranded. You'd never be able to cash out any of the million coins that are sitting in that wallet.
In that wallet.
Imagine like taking out like even like 100 Satoshis out of that wallet. The pandemonium that would set off across the planet.
Oh man!
And then
To the
other than
moon.
you have to worry about your personal security and just a whole host of problems. So no, I'm not. I'm definitely not, even if I was.
Okay, well, audience, you can post in the comments below how much you believe Mayor Ken that he's not Satoshi Nakamoto, but we'll keep going and see how credible the story is that he's saying he's not Satoshi. So I guess that's the story. So I think you take your first hack at becoming mayor in 2018. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Had you at that point, I think the important part for people to understand is like, most people never bought Bitcoin the first they heard of it. Had you heard of Bitcoin before 2018, or was that after?
I think it would have been roughly the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, my son came up to me about 6 years ago, and he asked me, or he told me, "Dad, I want to buy some Bitcoin." And is this a PG podcast?
No, you can let her rip. Trevor and I are like,
it's a bit, but basically, I literally said to him, "You touch that shit, and I'm going to punch you in the throat." Because I obviously am the smartest person on the planet. I'm a CPA, investment banker, la da 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 da. And then a buddy of mine brought it up as well. Jeff Booth. I read his book, The Price of Tomorrow. Started having conversations, then read about 12 books at the time. Now it's like probably 30 or 40 books adjacent, or like on Bitcoin, on cryptocurrency, which we can talk about as well. By the way, I'm a Bitcoin maximalist, but token economy, layered money, when money dies. So, what happened in the Weimar Republic in the 1930s Germany, the Bitcoin standard, which is obviously the Bible, the fiat standard, like the list goes on and on. Ray Dalio's book, Changing World Order. And then you realize, holy crap, forget about Bitcoin for a sec. We're living in a Ponzi scheme, and the rate of debasement of our currency is absolutely brutal. And so, what choices do we have? And then you sort of look at all the different asset categories, and is it real estate? I've never been a fan of real estate. I've always broken down the numbers, and it's never generated a return beyond, the stock market. It's inefficient. I used to, even though I was a gold miner, or I worked in mining, I always found it kind of comical that, how gold was priced. It didn't make sense. Like we just like the market's the market, but it was kind of weird. And then you wake up to it, then it actually makes total sense because it's actually a great store of value. And then you wake up to Bitcoin and you realize Bitcoin is literally 1,000 times better than gold.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I mean, I have it, just right on my desk for every client meeting. I have the 20 billion Zimbabwe dollars and I have an ounce of gold because like we're coming up with financial plans and wealth plans for our clients, but like they don't actually even understand the unit of account that they're talking about, right? And I think that's very, very helpful, right? And so
just on that, like I know, I think it was Jeff that brought up the concept, Bitcoin's the only true ledger of account.
Mhm.
And how it relates to the city of Vancouver and the people that live here is, if you talk to people in Vancouver, house prices are crazy and they've been going up forever. And I remember seeing a stat that the house price in Vancouver hasn't changed since 1930, when priced in gold. So I had to prove this to myself. And so I went back to 1995. And if you look at how much the average house price was in Vancouver, it was 500 grand. And at the end of 2022, it was what, 2.43 million bucks, or it went up 383%, which makes sense. Like that's what everyone's experienced. But when priced in gold, it went from 958 ounces to 957 ounces. It remained relatively flat. Now, you could say I cherry picked those dates. I just stumbled into those dates. But if you look at that date range and you strip out the outliers like the highs and the lows, that range is pretty tight. It's plus or minus 11% variation. Whereas in dollars, it still went up, hundreds of percentages. So we're living in a Ponzi scheme right now, and we don't have a true ledger of account. And we can't run this as a city of Vancouver because we live in the same environment as everyone who works here and lives here. And so we have to, buy the same supplies from the same suppliers, and we want to pay our people, the same wages in real terms plus then some. And when our currency is getting debased by 15%, we will not be able to find 15% a year in efficiencies or increase property taxes by 15% a year. Yes. Even if not to cover off the ball at what we do. So we're in a lot of trouble as a society if we do not address this problem now.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that about the city of Vancouver. I just posted this a couple days ago. I'm going to try to share this with you, Ken, here. Let's see here. And I'll let you break that down because that's such an important point that you just touched on. There we go. Ken, can you see my screen there?
Just 1 second. Oh.
Yeah, this is, alluding to what you said, you broke it down with the city of Vancouver and houses priced in gold. And I just posted this the other day. This is the 10-year of, average house price in Canada from 2015 to average price today. And then that average house price in gold and Bitcoin. And I think it's just really helpful. Like you understand that really well, but just like, maybe it kind of, if you look at this as like, can you break that down for the audience like one more time? Because that is such an important point that I don't think people understand.
Yeah. In very simplistic terms, fiat currency, which basically, paper money with ink on it that is just printed, is worthless. It's becoming worthless. Mm-hmm. And so, the analogy I would give you is imagine let's say we lived in a place where someone had a counterfeit printer where they can print a ton of money. You would lose confidence in your money. I think that's fair to say, right? You think back, to like the last century where people would print money and people would lose confidence in the counterfeit bills. So that's what we have, except for we have central banks that are doing it, and it's legal. Mm-hmm. And so we're not increasing the size of, the economy per se, but we're printing more dollars. So you have more dollars chasing the same assets. And I'm not going to get political here. We don't take a position on who's in office in Ottawa. I'm just going to highlight Pierre Poilievre does have the best analogy. You have 10 apples and you have $10, and each apple costs $1. Now, if you print another $10, now you have $20 in the economy. But you still have 10 apples. So the only thing that happens is your apples become $2 an apple. They haven't gone up in value. Your money has gone down. And so when you look at gold, the reason gold's a great store. By the way, I'm not giving any investment advice. I'm not qualified to give investment advice. These are just my, I'm expressing sort of my thoughts. When you look at gold, the reason gold is a decent store of values, you can only produce about 1.5 to 1.7% of the world's gold supply in any given year. Even if gold ran to like, $7,000 an ounce, the amount of effort it would entail to, build new mines and find more ore deposits and what have you, you can't, double the gold supply tomorrow. So that's why gold maintains its value. And Bitcoin is just gold on steroids. In addition to the fact that it's way better, like it's highly divisible, it's transportable, it's non-confiscatable, it's finite. There's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever. And even that didn't hit me at the time when I heard that. It really only hit me about 3 weeks ago, where like the significance of the only thing ever in human history that's completely finite. It's a pretty big deal. And so, that I think that's why you're seeing, house prices going up in terms of fiat. It's actually going down in terms of gold, which makes sense because if you believe that technology makes things cheaper, and if you believe competition makes things cheaper, then houses should get cheaper, and which they are in terms of gold. And then Bitcoin, it's just a way better form of gold.
Yeah, that's one of like our focuses at our boot camp. Actually, when we talk about that, is like if you just have a paid off house, you're actually going to lose value in terms of gold terms. Like if you don't know how to use the leverage and actually lever that up, you're actually moving backwards in terms of real net worth, right? And that's a shocking moment for most people because they think that the one paid off house is the ultimate goal, but it's actually a backwards moving vehicle once you have it, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
statistically.
Yeah, and just on that, once again, I'm not giving investment advice, but if you strip all the names off of the asset classes and you looked at housing and you think about it, you go, well, wait a sec. Here's something that's pretty lumpy. It's not divisible. There's high transaction costs and it's not very liquid.
Yeah.
And so people are running it to because it's a better store of value, versus fiat currency. So I think people rush into it. But if you actually looked at it and you had options, you'd go, why would I ever invest in that? That sounds dumb. And now it's playing out because there is an option, and that's Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I want to separate that from the decision to live in a place that you love, like a lifestyle choice. But if you're looking at it as an investment, but if it was an anonymous investment and you had to rank it relative to other things, you probably don't choose it.
Yeah.